Wandering through the Cairns show the other day, I came across, no, not the latest kitchen knife sharpener or 100% organic certified backache relief massage oil, but a group of volunteers promoting a brand new political party. If there's one thing that gets my attention then, it has to be another alternative to the tired same old political parties we get offered each election. Today, I'm sitting down talking to Dan McCarthy of the Regional Australia Party. Hello, Dan, and welcome to the program.
G'day, Alan.
Now, Dan, straight up, why form another party?
Well, Alan, that's a very interesting and timely question. And of all the questions I get, I've been playing around with politics for quite some time, and the two most common questions I get is who the hell can I vote for and why form another political party? The interesting thing is the answer to the second question is exactly the first question.
Right.
People are just sick to the eyeballs of having the same old from the major parties, the pork barrelling and the promises, most of which get excused away the moment the polls close. And people really are looking for somebody, a political party that supports them and one that they can support. They're sick and tired of the major parties just repeating the same promises every election. We're going to have a feasibility study for this, and then that gets marketed as we're going to have a new dam. Well, look at Nalinga. We've been having feasibility studies for Nalinga Dam for over 50 years, and they still haven't bought the land, So it's just, people are sick of it. People really want a party that is going to be focused on the regional areas and focus on the regional future and focus on the future generations. They want a long-term vision. When you have a look at where the major parties are at, they have divulged away from where they were. They used to have principles. Now they've got written principles, but neither of them really live up to their philosophy. Labor Party used to be a party of the worker, but today they're a party of the union heavyweights, and they seemingly could care less about the real working class people. And then when you get to the Liberal Party, well, they used to be the party for small business, but today it seems they're nothing more than a lackey for the multinational corporations. And that's generally at great expense to the small businesses. Amazingly, both of those, the major parties, have been totally captured by the UN's agenda. The Chardonnay and the latte set in the major capital city coffee shops, as I like to call them, they're totally caught up in the agenda, and it generally always works against the best interests of regional Australia and our vision and our future.
Right.
People just really do want somebody that's focused on the regions, has got a vision for the regions, and actually will get on with looking after people in regional Australia.
Okay, so for our listeners, what are the regionals all about exactly?
Well, we're all about the regions. We are totally focused on and totally committed to regional Australia. I figure we've got about 150, well, we do have 150 members of parliament in the federal parliament, the lower house. We've got 76 senators. They nearly all live, other than a couple of exceptions, they all nearly live all in the major capital areas, and they're all focused on looking after the three capital cities. And that's where the population is. It's a flaw in our electoral system where it's representation by volume of people, not volume of area or volume of issues. You look at the Northern Territory, for instance, it's quite a big land mass, and they've got two federal senators, yet they've got a very vulnerable Indigenous community that has got great issues that rarely get any airtime other than a bit of virtue signalling on the floor of the Parliament. So, and in North Queensland here, we've now got, after the last election, I made a big fuss that we didn't have any senators in North Queensland. We had Ian McDonald in Townsville, who was retiring, and now we've got one Labor senator in Cairns. We've got Matt Canavan from the Nationals down in Rockhampton. There's Susan McDonald actually in Townsville now. The rest of them, the other 9 Queensland senators, all live in the southeast corner. Tied to major parties, look after the regions. They don't say that. They actually use the word regional Australia on a constant basis, but it doesn't flow out into the money they represent and fight for.
Okay, so what was the response from the show stall, Dan?
Yeah, no, the show response was pretty good, actually. People obviously don't go to the show to talk to political party or politicians, but just walking past, there was a lot of people who were quite, our branding sort of caught their eye. We were able to have a conversation with them, and it was quite overwhelming. And the same two questions come up all the time. But a few people would say, well, why from another party? It's like, well, are you happy with who you're voting for? And very few of them said yes.
Yeah,
Some of them say, well, we've got to vote for this team because, we've always done it, and I just can't stand the other guys, but I'm just not happy with them. It just goes to show people really are looking for somebody to vote for that will represent the regions and particularly our local issues. And we've got a long list of local issues that have been neglected for many, many years now by both major parties and both at state and federal level.
Right. Now, today I'm talking to Dan McCarthy of the Regional Australia Party. Now, you asked the public what they wanted rather than what you were proposing, which I thought was a little bit different. So what was the feedback regarding local issues, Dan?
Yeah, well, like I was just saying, there's a whole bunch of local issues, Alan. Like, look at the Coranda Range, for instance. Like the last two elections, I've made the fixing the Coranda Range major upgrades and proposals as key election commitments. And at both of those last two elections, the current federal member and the state members have both basically either stayed silent on it or they've actively gone out of their way to rubbish my positions on trying to actually do something proactive to a major arterial feeder road for not just the city of Cairns and the Tablelands, but for the whole entire North Queensland region. So we put that proposal up, and it just gets rubbished by the people that have actually got the power and the backing to do something about it. But they choose not to do something about it. And now look where we are today because of their total and utter neglect and negligence of addressing that issue. Now we have a Coranda Range Bridge, and I was only up and down it a couple of times in the last few days myself, where we've got the bridge there is well and truly past its use by date. I'm hearing some engineers want it closed altogether because they're quite concerned about it. But at best, we've got a 50-tonne limit with one lane each way, stop-and-go signs on our major arterial access because it's been a complete and utter failure by both state and federal governments. At both blue and red teams have just neglected. They've pushed it off into the never-never, knowing that it should have been addressed 10 years ago, but they've just pushed it off. So that's just one issue. And then we've got our Port of Cairns. We had a semi-approval for a major dredging project there a couple of years ago, and then that got watered down because the major parties didn't want to upset the green groups in the major capital cities, and then we ended up getting less than a quarter of what was originally designed, which was going to have no harm to the Great Barrier Reef, and that was pushed aside.
Yeah, Clayton's result.
There's just two small examples of what people are talking about. People want to have some business support. They want to just hiding under their doona. But we've got those people locked up there. Like my convention business is in the tourism industry. I run a charter boat, taking people out to see the wonderful Great Barrier Reef, taking them fishing, snorkeling, diving, all the rest of those things. But when our international borders were shut, that just wiped our business out, our whole industry out completely. And the mainstream tourism industry has been massively impacted by that. And then the government's position was, okay, well, we'll have the domestic travellers will prop you up and keep everything going. Well, they keep locking the borders up, so that just keeps, we're getting a whole bunch of false starts and whatever. Yeah. But there's major financial assistance going into Victoria and New South Wales, and there's virtually nothing coming to the businesses in Queensland that have been affected by that. And it's not only for the tourism industry, but at the end of the day, we would much rather than be begging for handouts, we'd much rather be just having the foot taken off our throat so we can actually get on with and continue with business and helping our region prosper.
Right. Now, you've mentioned the red and the blue teams. If you had to put a line in it, where do you see the regionals on the political scale? Left, right, in the centre? Where do you think stand? That's a good question. We're just to the right of centre. We're a Conservative party, and if you look around Queensland at the moment, there just isn't one. There's not a party that can say it's a Conservative party, or that does say it's a Conservative party and actually is one. The LNP, I don't want to start bagging any of the other parties, even though I have already given them a bit of a touch-up. You look at the principles they've pushed through in the last couple of terms in the federal parliament, for instance. The Liberal Party has pushed the Greens agenda much harder than they've pushed any Conservative agenda. And I hear on the weekend the LNP actually had their state convention. They've got a new leader. Springborg's taken the reins again or whatever. And, he seems like a nice enough sort of fellow. You've got David Crisafulli, their parliamentary leader.
more or less apologising for how bad their party's been over the last decade, and they're promising reform. So the penny is finally starting to drop, that they've actually been way off track. They've neglected their base. They've walked away from their principles. And now I think it's actually too late for them to try, particularly if they maintain anywhere near the course they've been on. So, they've got no chance of living up to the principles that they say they stand for. So this is another reason why we're forming the Regional Australia Party, because there is nobody there in that conservative space that's in the centre appealing to a broad section of the community in a lot of different regions, not just one electorate or on one key issue. But we're principle-based, and that's where we will stay, and we'll stand for our principles. And I've always said I'd rather stand for something than die for anything.
Right.
And that's the problem today. You look across the spectrum, most of the political leaders and the political parties, they stand for whatever's popular on the day, whatever the media's pumping the tyres up of, and it's just not good enough.
Right, now that appeals to someone like me, but isn't there already some competition in that area, Dan? Like, I'm talking about the Catters, the new LNP or New Liberals or whatever they're called. Yeah, so there is some competition there.
Well, there is some competition in small areas, but if you have a look at the different parties there, like I was just saying, the Liberal Party can't claim to be a centre-right party at all, because their actions speak far louder than their words. The New Liberal Party, I vaguely remember hearing that at one point, but they're certainly, from what I've seen anyway, haven't got any traction in regional areas, and which is where we're focused on. As far as I'm concerned, the big city people are going to have to look after themselves. They've got enough people running around bending over backwards trying to police them, and there's a massive void of anybody trying to look after the regional areas, being focused on and committed to the regional areas, and that's why we're forming the new party. So, and as far as the other minor parties go, I've got a lot of respect for minor parties. I've spent most of my political career so far, the last 15 years, in and around minor parties, and many of them have many great aspects, but they also have limitations. I'm certainly not going to start rubbishing any of them, because they're all trying to have a go, but I think there's a massive opportunity there, maybe to, I don't know, whether it's some sort of amalgamation or just better appealing to those voters that support those parties, or however, but there needs to be some major change one way or the other, because when you look at it, you've got roughly, and it varies seat to seat, but you've got roughly 30% vote for the LNP. You've got a roughly 30% vote for the Labor Party. You've got another, 5 to 10% vote for the Greens, and, God bless their cotton socks. And you've got about 30-odd% there that's in the mix for the other minor parties or whatever there. But really what that represents is people that are just discontent or objectionate to the major parties and what they do or don't, or generally what they don't do. So they're looking for a political home. They're looking for somewhere to park their vote. They're looking for someone that will actually stand up for their issues and represent them, and that's why we're forming the Regional Australia Party. So there is a big opportunity. Yes, there's great challenges there, but nothing comes easy. Nothing worthwhile comes easy, so you've got to get in and fight. But we've got a huge long list of issues that have been neglected by both parties. So the choice is easy. We can either form another party and try and put things together and fight for our regions and bring like-minded people together, people that are frustrated with what we haven't received so far, or the impediments that have been put in the way of regional Australia. And we've got a whole bunch of people that are desperate to see the regional areas of Australia flourish. And if regional Australia flourishes, the whole of Australia flourishes. So it is in the best national interest to have our regional areas grow and thrive. But we've been let down, and we need to do that. So the choices are either go down that course of forming a Regional Australia Party, or we just go off fishing. And sometimes that's a very tempting prospect. Just go off fishing, go off camping, just come back from a couple of days enjoying the bush myself. And we can do all that. But the only problem, and leave it to the so-called expert major parties, but the only thing with doing that is then we become victims of whatever they dish up. And I think there's a lot of people out there, there's a growing number of people out there, millions of them, I believe, around Australia, that have well and truly had enough of copying what we get dished out by the major parties, and particularly the neglect in our regional areas.
Dan, when is the first election test for the regionals?
Well, I envisage that we will be contesting the next federal election. It has to be sometime between August this year and the 21st of May next year. And I think the way the federal government's going a bit south in the polls at the moment, and with all the other issues they've created, I think generally that it's more likely going to be pushed off till next year. But time will tell, I guess. 24 hours is a long day in politics. If something colossal happens in the major parties, the Prime Minister may well get in the car and go down to Government House and call an election. But I think it's more likely to be later next year. I think they were looking at some dates later this year, but it's probably going to be pushed off till next year. But we'll see what happens. But our intention is to run in a few select seats at the federal election, and then obviously we'll have a couple of days off, and then we'll be straight into focusing on the next state election, which is going to be in October 2024.
Dan, that's exactly about when I thought they'd be doing the election. But now what's involved in getting behind or joining your Regional Australia Party, Dan?
Yeah, well, we have a website. It's regionals, with an S on the end, regionals.org.au, or people can give me a call. If you want my phone number, I'm more than happy to give you that, 0413 054 031. You can give us a call, touch base with some of the other guys that are involved in our party. Come and join us. Come and help be part of the future. Come and help be part of the next generation, because, we're either going to paddle like hell and not get any ground, or we're going to paddle like hell and make some significant ground. So come and join us. Come and be part of the future of North Queensland. What have we got to lose? And we're starting here. We're grown here. We're based here. No other political party can say that. So we've got a lot of things on our side. Come and join us. Come and be part of the future.
Dan McCarthy, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Alan. Really appreciate your time.
Appreciate that.